Having served a decade on council now, 9 years of those as a councillor, obviously in taking the mayor's office and assuming my new role, in many respects, it was very natural. And I felt like the previous 9 years experience have served me well in a strong familiarity with our policy and governance and city operations. So in that sense, I was really pleased to have that strong foundation in my new role. I think as mayor, though, I knew that there would be there's always competing interests in the community, and it's a great challenge to balance out those interests. And in order to respond to the needs of our citizens in the here and now, but also look to the future and try to balance out the interests of today and the interests of the future, and often those competing voices within it. And so a lot of time is spent in navigating through that and hearing from the community and hearing different perspectives, and then trying to synthesize those different perspectives and landing on that proper foundation to move the community forward. It's been an incredible year, and in reflecting back on it and thinking back from day one and some of our challenges, some of our successes and accomplishments, there's much that I think that council can be proud of. And of course, there's areas in 2015 that we didn't necessarily make the headway that we wanted to this year, but we will certainly prioritize that next year. And I've had opportunity to meet so many different people in the community that I hadn't had occasion to meet before. And so on a general sense, that's been a highlight, just being able to see our community through so many different perspectives and meeting so many more Red Deerians in a new capacity. But I think the culmination of that really is around the Winter Games. And to me, there was a defining moment. And when the the Canada Winter Games Bid Committee came to Red Deer, we headed them along the parade route. And that whole morning, they really held their cards very close. I really sensed that there was an uphill battle, that Lethbridge had really submitted a strong bid, and that in many respects they had seen things that they wanted to see, and that Lethbridge might have had a lock on it. But I know that Red Deer had a defining moment when we were along the parade route and we were in the wagon with Ron and Carrie McLean in the bid committee, and we came around the corner, and you could literally see them drop their poker face. And when we turned around that corner, and thousands and thousands and thousands of Red Deerians were present wearing red, I know with complete confidence, and it was later confirmed for me by the bid committee, that secured it. Red Deerians secured the bid for themselves in that moment because of the demonstration of community spirit. And so I remember being in that moment and looking around and feeling so, as a born and raised Red Deerian, I've always been a very proud Red Deerian, but in that moment, it was such a defining moment for our community, and just feeling so incredibly proud and honored to be mayor. And when you fast forwarded from Rally Day in August to September, when at the bid announcement, often in my State of the City addresses throughout 2014, I spoke of Red Deer as our third largest city and as Alberta's emerging city. But in that moment when we were awarded the Canada Winter Games bid, and just again so honored to accept that on behalf of Red Deerians, and I had a moment where I looked out and I realized the national impact of that decision, and that recalibrated my thinking too, that we're not only Alberta's emerging city but Canada's emerging city as well. For years, Red Deer has been positioned amongst the other mid-sized cities in Alberta, oftentimes in making an advocacy position before the provincial government. We found ourselves almost in competition with other communities in trying to ensure that our community needs are met. We've struggled a little bit. We have a lot of great things in our community, but we've struggled a little bit in our identity and branding to those outside of our community. And oftentimes, people, when they come to Red Deer, they're pleasantly surprised because they had a different set of assumptions about who Red Deer is. And when they actually experience Red Deer, they realize that we really are an energetic, vibrant, dynamic city. So when we talk about Red Deer as Alberta's emerging city, really when you look at the fact that we are the first of Alberta's mid-sized cities to approach that 100,000 population threshold, we're serving a region of 300 to 350,000 Albertans. We're centrally located on the QE2 corridor, and obviously Edmonton and Calgary have come into their own and are becoming more internationally renowned cities. And we're centrally positioned between the two on the QE2 corridor, which is one of the, of course, strongest economic corridors in the world. Really, by capitalizing upon all that momentum, we really are Alberta's emerging city in that we're the next big city. And I think that what's important about that is that because Red Deer has grown so much in recent years, we're really at that key watershed moment of making strong and key foundational infrastructure investments and decisions which will chart our future. And so when we're emerging, we're at that watershed moment where the decisions we make today will significantly impact the city we become in the future. Having said that, we need to be methodical in charting our course and becoming the type of city that we want to become, and be a city by design and not by default. And we still want to maintain our small town community character as we become a larger city as well. And I think that will really be our challenge in moving forward, is maintaining all that's great about Red Deer as we progress towards the city that we're becoming. You know, there's probably two general themes around dropping oil prices and an imminent provincial recession. And there's two parts to that. I think the first part is, as much as municipalities across Alberta, and the city of Red Deer in particular, have tried to wean ourselves off relying on funding sources from the provincial government, as municipalities, we are still heavily reliant, particularly on the capital front, on the provincial government. And any cue from the provincial government has been that they will be scaling back. And that has an absolute direct and indirect impact on our community. Direct in the sense that as a municipality, it affects our capital and operating budgets, but also it affects organizations in our community. You think of many agencies and charities and other community not-for-profits that add to the social fabric of our community, and they're also subject to service cuts. And so oftentimes they'll look to the local government to shore up those gaps. So I think that we directly feel it as a community leader, but also as a municipality as direct recipients to provincial funds. The second part of that is because as much as our local economy has diversified, we are heavily energy dependent. And when our citizenry and our local businesses are feeling the direct impacts of falling oil prices, our citizens' capacity to be able to absorb new and increasing taxes or additions rather to utility rates, individual households or businesses' capacity to be able to absorb what we're experiencing in terms of budget impacts, it's just that threshold just isn't there. So as much as we want to move the city forward and enhance service levels, ultimately operations on a whole might increase or change at a more stabilized rate, as opposed to actually moving the community forward in a more aggressive fashion, because we have to be so very respectful and mindful of where our citizenry and local businesses are in terms of their ability to absorb any financial increases. I think ultimately any leadership position, and I think having been in various leadership positions throughout my life, I've lived this and learned this, but I think particularly having been in the mayor's office for a year, is that leadership is about service, and particularly in public service, my life is committed and devoted to the people of Red Deer. And as much as it's sometimes difficult to explain a why behind a decision, a why or a why not, in a 10-second soundbite, at the end of the day, My job is to represent our public and to work with council in representing our public and ensuring that our community's broader best interests, both today and in the future, are reflected in sound decision making, and to move the community forward in the best interests of the people that I have daily privilege of serving. So leadership is about public service.